I'm Michael Chambers. I'm the Associate Vice President of Research at the University of South Alabama, and I'm here with about 15 other distinguished teaching team members as part of the I-Corps program, which is a site selected by the National Science Foundation involving University of South Alabama, the University of Mobile, Spring Hill College, and Bishop State. And we're have our entire class online today with four very distinguished entrepreneurs who will be speaking to our class. We have Daniel Riggs of BART. We have Adam Chronister of Pelident. We have Walt Armentrout of HeartLegacy, and we have Alex Pitt of Mustard Seed Ventures. And each one of them will be given some time to speak. We're very honored to have them with us. And Daniel, I'd like to start with you, if you would like to lead off our group.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll start by just thanking you, Dr. Chambers, for allowing me here. So I'd like to just share a little bit about myself, a little bit of my background, my experience in the corporate world and also the startup world. So I recently, with my wife and 2-year-old daughter, relocated to Mobile. It's been about 1.5 years. So in 2019, before the COVID crisis hit. So it's been somewhat different, but we've really enjoyed being part of the community here. As far as my background, my career has been mainly in mining technology. So I've spent about 10 years in mining tech. Started out in really engineering and sales support, although I quickly realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And my career quickly changed over to sales operations. So most of my background has been in sales ops, developing, implementing business strategies for global organizations specific to the North America and Latin America territories. So I was raised in Spain. I'm fluent in Spanish, and that was really helpful in getting me involved in the Latin America region. So I think it's very important, especially at the age that you're at, to really understand and know yourself, right? That's something that early on in my career I really struggled with. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or who I wanted to become, right? So a couple of years into my career, I realized that, hey, I really don't enjoy sitting in front of a desk and solving engineering problems. So I really questioned my career path. I really tried to spend time understanding who I wanted to be, what I wanted to be, and that's when I learned a lot about myself. So just a little bit about that. I'm an Enneagram type 8, so I'm naturally a challenger. I question ideas. I'm always looking to solve problems, and I'm somewhat confrontational. My wife will say at times I'm manipulative. I would have to disagree. But looking back at my career now over the last 10 years, I really see where that played into what I wanted to do and what I've been able to achieve. So I see where I've always looked for opportunities to challenge old ideas or things I thought didn't work and try to optimize processes within the business operation to really empower myself, but also empower others to improve and do things better. So how did I get into the startup world or entrepreneurship? So naturally, with being the way I am and learning that about myself, I always wanted to start a business. I always wanted to do my own thing, right? Which I know a lot of you are likely feel the same way. So building a company was always one of my goals. So naturally, when Steven, my co-founder, came up with the idea of BART, I jumped on board pretty quickly. Now, prior to that, Steven and I also started a small business marketing agency. And though we had some success initially, we really didn't enjoy it. We weren't really passionate about that. So we dropped that and went full into BART. And I say that just so you understand, you don't be afraid to change your mind. If you jump into something wholeheartedly and you don't really enjoy it, you're not passionate about it, you're not going to last. So don't be afraid of changing your mind. And I think a lot of that comes from not having fear of what people are going to think about you, right? So just a little bit about BART. So we are trying to solve one problem. The problem being that almost 3.5 million dogs in the U.S. enter shelters every year. The idea really came from Stephen, my co-founder's personal experience. In finding their dog, we realized how difficult the process was, and as we went through the customer discovery, we realized how big of a problem it is. A lot of dogs are going into families, or people are finding a dog that's really cute, but it doesn't really match their lifestyle. So we realized there had to be a better way to do that. So we built Bark with a mission of building the best platform for you, the buyer, to match up to a dog that really fits your lifestyle from a network of reputable breeders. So as far as the stage that we're in, we're currently in product market fit. So we're heavily involved in gathering feedback from both sides of the platform. We're also pursuing funding for our seed round. So we're very busy. Aside from that, we both also have other revenue streams or other jobs that take up some of our time. As far as my role within the business, naturally I'm heavily involved in building operation processes, so scalable operations. I'm really involved in customer discovery, gathering feedback, and applying that to our product management, and building and iterating on our product, and also data analytics. I really enjoy going through data, finding ways to optimize and setting metrics for the business. I guess some challenges that I would share. The main challenge we have faced has been really finding qualified local tech. Maybe not because it's lacking in the region, but because we just haven't been able to find that right fit to bring somebody on as a technical founder, or even find a group to work with that'll help us scale the tech side of the business. All in all, the experience has been great. We originally started the concept in 2018, I believe, at a Google Startup Weekend event. From that, we took the idea, pitched to an early investor that provided the funds for us to actually build an MVP, which was released in August of last year. And like I said, right now we're really trying to build on the concept, gather feedback, and really find that product market fit and fund the next stage of the business. I guess I'd like to end with just some advice, some things that I wish I would have known early on, or somebody would have really emphasized to me early on. Really be yourself. And first of all, start by learning about yourself. Like I said earlier, you need to really know who you are, what you want to be, who you want to be, and that's really going to help you make decisions in the future. When you have a clear direction about where you want to go, it makes it easier to make your decisions at each stage, whether it be through education, once you get into a startup, start your own business, or even join a large corporation. Really understand where you want to go, and don't be afraid. It makes it easier also when you know yourself. It makes it easier to stand for yourself. Question other ideas. Don't be afraid to question things. That's one thing that I guess I'm really passionate about. I like to learn, but I like to also question the things that I'm listening to, or things that I'm reading. And obviously, you're passionate about innovation. You can't have innovation without challenging ideas. And surround yourself with people that really empower you and challenge you, and find other people to challenge and empower as well. And never start learning, but be yourself. That's what I would like to end with.
Daniel, thank you so much. So I think I mentioned to you in some of our early conversations, we have a team from Quito in Ecuador, and I think it would be really refreshing for them to hear their native language instead of trying to understand our Southern English. So why don't you issue a welcome to them, if you don't mind, or a couple of your learning points. Take
Yeah,
it away.
sure. Yeah, I'll make it very brief. Bueno, en español, muchas gracias por participar en esta reunión. Os comento nada más que, mira, el saber español, el saber inglés, el tener varios idiomas es una gran ventaja. Definitivamente aprovéchalo, porque te va a traer muchas oportunidades. Thank you, Dr. Chambers.
Okay, thank you. Gerard just tells me that we'll get this message to them. We'll make sure that they hear that. So what I want to do is I want to take all the speakers in turn, and then at the end, I will ask each one of you a question before we open it up to the group. But I'd like to introduce the second speaker now, who is Adam Chronister. And Adam kind of started with an idea of a simple spreadsheet to help dental practices, and it evolved into much, much more. He's now turned that into more than just a dental practices platform, but a platform capable of serving other industries as well. And he can tell you more about that. But his company is Pelican Point Advisors, and he has a product that I think you'll find very interesting. So Adam, President and CEO of Pelident.
Thank you, Michael. And I do not speak Spanish, so please don't ask me to greet in Spanish. But you know, I think really I've lived a life of pivots and started early on. So just, you know, I was going to take some time to kind of tell my story and kind of go from there. So I'm a graduate of Mississippi State University. Don't hold that against me, but I got a degree in archaeology of all things. So that means that I immediately began running restaurants, and was a GM at a restaurant in Starkville, and did that for several years and graduated up. And that industry really brought me home to Mobile. I'm originally from here, and I was running a restaurant there and went through a layoff because I was there for maybe 5 or 6 years. And you know, I had to let 60 people go. And, you know, I was ready. I was done with the restaurant world. It's a very challenging one from an hour perspective, and was looking for a little more normalcy. I had a young child at that time, and I did what most restaurant GMs do, and I went into the dental industry. And so it's completely different, right? And I was an operations manager for a company called Patterson Dental Supply, which is one of the larger dental supply companies in the world, really. And I did that for 2 or 3 years and ended up running that branch. So I was a general manager for, I don't know, we did about 17 million in sales per year. So it was a fairly large branch. And during that time, I literally met thousands of dentists. I wasn't selling a product. I had a team of 30 that were out there selling. My role was to sell Patterson Dental. So, you know, I had the fun job of just going and meeting people and having a good time and understanding their business. And I saw so many challenges within every single dental practice. And it was all this, you know, there's a gap between the operational side and the financial side. Dentists were not trained in business. They were trained to take care of teeth. And as a result, you know, their business are generally just crazy. And so in about 2000, and I think it was 16, Amazon came into the dental supply world. And as a result, many dental supply companies had a major consolidation. And unfortunately, our branch was one of those. So I had to go through another layoff and had to lay off a lot of other people. And my competitors locally did as well. And, you know, I kind of took a stand at that point. I've gone through two layoffs in my career. So I wasn't let go for performance. I was let go out of circumstance. So I realized that I'm taking a stand here, and I'm going to control my own destiny from here on out. So it's really kind of a kick in the pants to say, you know what, Adam, just go do it. And I originally started off in succession planning, where I saw dentists, you know, they kind of went through three life cycles within their career. They had a startup, which would last 5 to 10 years. Then they had this maintenance mode where they reached a certain capacity ceiling, whether from facility or personal capacity, and they couldn't grow. So they porpoised for, for 20 to 25 years of the career. They would get tired, then they would decrease the amount, of time that they would work. They'd go from 4 days to 3 days to 2 days of work, a week working. And, I really saw a need for them to, help them at least maintain the value of their practice without it declining, sell at the right time. And so I started off working with a client, and it was really just kind of almost a pro bono job where, I really just wanted to learn and develop my consulting business. And I worked with him for a year, and we doubled the guy's profit at the end of the year. And it was no magic wand. I'm no magician. All I did was simply put the guy in the budget and show him what he was doing clinically, how it affected him financially. So during that time, I wrote a 250-page Excel spreadsheet that there's no one on this world that's going to look at but me. And but I realized that, from that spreadsheet, I think I could scale this and develop a software where I could take it to the masses. And I did. So I brought on some early investors that helped me create a prototype, and we worked on that for 3 to 4 years. We had lots of pivots in design and all kinds of things. But about 2 years ago, we so-called completed. Our MVP was tested. We had beta testers. Beta testers loved it. And I went to market, and I started, selling to all, trying to sell to every dentist I knew, and they loved the software. And they all told me, this is fantastic, and I'm not going to buy it. So it was one of those oh crap moments that either this is the end of this train or I've got to do something different. And just so happens that I met with a dental CPA, and it was at a trade show, and we were sitting there talking. He's like, man, this is fantastic. This is what CPAs have needed forever. So unbeknownst to me, CPAs are going through this shift in their business models from one that's more transactional. So you go to the CPA and they say, I'm going to do your taxes. It's going to be X amount of hours, and your bill is going to be whatever it is, to one that's more value driven, to where you have a good, better, best. They give you a menu of services. It's much more consultative. And in order for them to be consultative, they've got to niche down into the operation so they can give you better insights. So it was one of those kind of aha moments that I need to make a pivot here. And I did one that's kind of irregular. I up niched. So I took what I had from a dental side and up niched that to a CPA, to CPAs, to really help and aid that transition from that transactional to that value model, billing model. And I had this great operational tool in the dental side already developed. And so about a year ago, I actually signed with a top 50 CPA firm who pretty much has an exclusive license to our dental side, and we're beginning to niche down into other areas as well. So definitely lots of pivots, and we're in the process of kind of pivoting again, because we've realized that CPA firms need consultants as well to be able to understand value selling. So not only are we selling a SaaS software to help them in that transition, but we're consulting them on how to actually sell. So I think in closing, for me, I think my biggest insight or suggestions would be, there's a lot of very familiar faces on this panel, and I think I've talked to most of them. I think understanding other people's wisdom is invaluable. We have a lot of knowledge these days. We can get on internet and find all kind of business plans and whatnot, but it's the wisdom of the people around you that really help push you forward. I think persistence and perseverance are another thing that as an entrepreneur you have to have. And I think the third thing is to always look for opportunity, but don't chase shiny objects, because I know I've chased a lot that lead to kind of dead ends. It's good to stay focused, but always look for opportunity.
Adam, that was great. Thank you so much. And I know we'll have a number of questions for you here shortly. So let me introduce our next speaker is Walt Armentrout of HeartLegacy. He's the CEO and co-founder. And over the last decade, he's helped thousands of healthcare organizations and senior living communities implement and leverage enterprise-level software applications to improve their operations. And Walt, it's to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers. I just shared my screen. Are you guys able to see this PowerPoint?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for having me. I'm flattered to be here. So Dr. Chambers asked me to come on and just tell a little bit about the story of my company, HeartLegacy, where we got started, how we really made a fundamental change just a couple of years ago in order to grow more rapidly. And, you know, at the time, a pivot like that is pretty terrifying, but I can say with confidence it was the right decision for my company, HeartLegacy. We've since grown to a team of, we've got about 25 people, about 5,000 customers across all 50 states in Canada. But a couple of years ago, prior to this pivot, you know, we weren't quite growing at the clip that we wanted. So again, my name is Walt Armentrout, CEO of HeartLegacy. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama. And like Adam, I graduated with a degree which I do not use anymore. I graduated with biology. So I went a little bit of a different direction. And then I went from Alabama to South and I got my MBA there. And I can tell you that was one of the greatest programs. I learned a lot at South. I took that course at night while working full time. I was working with a healthcare software company. We actually worked with Patterson Dental. Adam, we integrated with EagleSoft and Dolphin. So I was on the back end helping with a lot of those integrations and customer support. I eventually moved into more of a customer facing role in sales. So I was fortunate in that I got to see two sides of a business. I got to see the back end side and then eventually move into a front end customer facing side. But then, you know, as I was, you know, working with this company, I realized that I wanted to do something on my own. So this was back in 2014. The concept of HeartLegacy was born, and it was really born out of legacy preservation. It's not quite what we do today. As I mentioned, we had some big pivots, but back in 2014, I had a good family friend. He was about 60 years old. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So he knew he had a limited amount of time left. So I said, but in the timing of that diagnosis was really unfortunate because he had his first grandson on the way, somebody he would never really get to meet. So I started asking myself, you know, what can I do to help him pass some things down to his grandson? You know, words of wisdom, life stories, messages of faith, anything that he wanted to pass down, I wanted to help him do that. So I started to dig into a couple different industries and really do some market research and determine where's the best place to bring an idea like this. And, you know, oncology was the first thought. But after doing a lot of market research, you know, bringing an idea like that is very difficult because the sales and marketing has to be done so perfect. And then I eventually landed on this industry called senior care. And I didn't know much about it at the time. Senior care was just this foreign thought to me. And as I dug in, I learned that senior care is not just nursing homes. Senior care is a hyper-competitive industry made up of independent living, assisted living, high-end communities that are, like I said, competing with one another. They need to differentiate themselves. They want to do everything they can to be different from the community down the street. So I brought to senior care, these higher-end communities, a legacy preservation amenity for their residents, something that would allow the residents to sit down, tell life story messages, messages of faith or words of wisdom, captured on video using our app. It would come to us, and then we would edit it, make it look good, and pass it back to residents and their families. And that was kind of the start of HeartLegacy. And it didn't take very long for us to just start listening to our customer, which is, I think, one of the most important things you can take away is listen to the customer, because after a couple months, our customers were reaching out to us saying, hey, we're sending you all this video. Can we start to send you, you know, the Cinco de Mayo party or the open house that we have going on? And you guys edit it and brand it and make it marketable. So we just kind of organically grew from this legacy preservation stance into this sales and marketing tool for our partners. And it really, once we started to see that shift happen and we started to change our marketing and how we approach our sales demos, I mean, the company just kind of took off from there. Because initially on my slide here, you can see we were very senior care specific. You know, like Adam, we were kind of plugged into a single industry, not industry agnostic. We were offering a legacy preservation amenity. We had some hardware involved. which made the onboarding and implementation too long and expensive. And we were speaking to the wrong budget. We were speaking to an activities budget with this legacy preservation idea. But once we started listening to the customer and they said, hey, help us create some video for our marketing, for our social media and corporate website, and for our sales processes, that's when we really turned the corner. And then a couple years after that, probably 2 years ago, we had another product fall out by listening to the customers called Sales Mail. And Sales Mail is an instantly branded video product. Our customers were calling us up and they were saying, hey, we need video right away, something that's going to allow my sales team to build relationships and put a face with a name with leads and potential residents. So we had the Sales Mail product fall out, and it's kind of become the tail wagging the dog because this thing has just far outgrown everything we had implemented or designed to date. And that did so many great things for us. It allowed us to become industry agnostic. So now we're not just selling into senior care. It's really any sales executive that's lead or potential customer facing. So we're touching a lot of different industries, which did wonders for our total addressable market. We were able to offer 100% SaaS-based solution, no more hand editing, which, sent our margins through the roof, faster onboarding. It reduced our customer churn because there was more usage. And we were speaking to the right budget of the senior care customer, at least, because there's a lot more money to be had in the sales and marketing world than the activity world, and decisions were moving a lot faster. So since we made that pivot, the company it's done very well just because we were able to listen to the customer and find bigger pain points and solve them with a similar product. The bones were there with this video product, but we just kind of shifted our sales and marketing a little bit, and it kind of repositioned us as a company. So, learned a lot. We could probably talk for days. Anybody that's founded a company could tell you things for days about what to do and what not to do. But one of the main things is listen to the customer. They know their pain points better than you do. And it's very hard, back to Adam's point, you don't want to just chase the shiny object. You have to be very careful in which problems, because the customer is going to give you a lot of problems. You just got to be very careful in which ones of those you want to solve. You want to keep it within your scope. And then the second one, you hear this in every business book you pick up or every motivational speech, it's fail forward fast. Starting a company is all about failures. There's 100 failures in a day. It's just how quickly you learn from them, pick yourself up and move forward. It may have been the digital marketing campaign didn't deliver the results that you wanted, or you got on your demo and you didn't get the deal, or, the customer is upset. It's learning why you didn't get the result you wanted, improving upon it. Don't make the mistake again and move forward. That's what wisdom is all about. It's about failing and learning from it. So you really gain wisdom in failing forward fast. And then probably the most important thing is pick the right team. It's funny, Daniel said that one of the hardest things for him is finding good technical talent in this area. I can vouch for that. It is not easy. But surround yourself with people smarter than you. You got to be humble enough to admit that your VP of sales knows how to sell better than you, or your VP of tech knows more about technology than you. Surround yourself with people smarter than you. And when you do have to make these, mini pivots or big pivots, if you can communicate clearly with them and share the vision, they're going to stay with you the whole ride. So you just want to find the right people, which is much easier said than done. Share the vision with them and communicate clearly. And the rest is easy. So if you guys have any questions, I think we have one more speaker. So I want to thank you, Dr. Chambers, for having me.
Oh, well, that was great, Walt. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions. And we do have one more speaker, and that is Alex Pitt. And he's now from Point Clear, and not everyone from Point Clear is going to sound like Alex. I'll warn you in advance. Alex is a UK native. He just moved here not too long ago. And like all the other speakers today, he's quite the underachiever. He's the co-founder at Mustard Seed Ventures. It's a venture investment firm that tries to create world-class businesses. And he's formerly senior vice president at Mubadala in Abu Dhabi, worked with the Boston Consulting Group in New York, Chicago, and Dubai, and he was an analyst with Goldman Sachs. He has a Bachelor of Science from the London School of Economics and an MBA from Stanford. So really lacking a real pedigree, but we asked him to speak anyway today. Alex, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael, Dr. Chambers, and for everyone's time. I'm not from South Alabama, although I absolutely love it here. We'll see how long we stay. I've been coming every summer for vacations for the last decade or so, and the link is through my wife, who's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We've been married for about 15 years now, and we were looking for a nice spot to get married about a decade ago, and just landed in on a beautiful part of the world, that's for sure. And we thought with COVID, everyone generally working behind a computer screen at the moment, why not come out with our 3 young boys and live here for a period of time? So we plan to be here for at least a couple of years, but who knows in life, that might very well turn out to be a longer period. And it's been great getting to know Dr. Chambers and some other really interesting people through these visits, and hopefully many of you in person over the next few months as well. So it's been really inspiring listening to Daniel, Adam, and Walt tell your stories. And we never really had a good idea, my co-founder and I. We've been living off the coattails of others with better ideas and investing into them. And I'll sort of share some of my reflections around that. But in many ways, I'd much rather have been an entrepreneur with my own idea. We literally spent 6 or 12 months, Henry and I, brainstorming around all sorts of things we could start and couldn't come up with any good ones. I think the best we did was bottling Swiss Mountain Air and selling it in China, and someone else is now doing that. So here we are, I guess 6 years into Mustard Seed, and it's been amazing. I mean, lots of scars to show for it, but I can't imagine now going back to a more traditional career. I guess the background is, so I started this business with one of my closest friends, and I don't regret that for a second. I think having had a partner on the journey has been really important for me. I couldn't have done it alone. He's a proper investor. I'm not. I've kind of learned a little bit over the last 5 or 6 years. But we were both looking for something. I'm 40 now. He's the same age as me. We were in our kind of early to mid 30s when we started cooking up the idea of Mustard Seed, which again was built of other people's ideas. We both wanted something with more purpose at the heart of our career, and we both wanted something with more flexibility and more entrepreneurial. The way it started was after this kind of 6 to 12 months frustrating period of not having good ideas, we thought, let's show up at universities. If I'd had a link to USA back then, we would have been on campus in a heartbeat. Sadly, I didn't back then, but this was 7 or 8 years ago. We started showing up at universities in Europe where we had friends who were studying, and we got in touch with the entrepreneurship clubs, and we said, let's show up and see if we can have coffee with a few students and maybe make 1 or 2 venture investments with very small amounts of our own money. Not that we really had any money at the time or do now, but we got completely inundated and we couldn't quite believe it. We showed up at these business schools thinking we'd have 4 or 5 students come and meet with us, and we would have 150, 200 applying to meet. And it didn't make any sense to us how a couple of rookies in their mid-30s with absolutely no investing experience could get this kind of interest, saying they had $20,000 to invest in a couple of companies. And I think that sort of, I guess, miscalibration between the quality and quantity of ventures that come to us for funding and the amount of capital that's available to invest. I still see that in our business now, and we've grown our business to be 35 companies and 8 employees and assets under management around $100 million now. But that's, that gap between 5,000 business plans in our inbox and so many really great ones, and the amount that we have to invest is sadly still there. We have always been very focused on backing entrepreneurs that have a real sense of purpose, a social or environmental cause or purpose at the heart of their business model. And I got a really strong sense of that from the 3 founders who spoke before me. For us, investing is just a start. Obviously we have to invest something, but much more about it in the longer term is about the relationship after that. We get really involved in the portfolio companies that we invest in. That manifests itself in just being available, brainstorming ideas, being we're called Mustard Seed for a reason. Mustard Seed is referred to in lots of different religious texts, in novels, in ornithology. It shows up in different kinds of cuisine. It always has maybe not in the cooking ingredient, but on all the other references, it's around planting a seed and helping it to grow and being a partner and sounding board to founders as they're building the business. And we always try and keep that in mind. One of the founders before me was I think it was Walt right before me, talking about, the people around you often will know a lot more than you do. And that's most definitely the case in our business. So it's a lot around finding people in our network to help the founders be successful, whether it's a functional expertise that they have, or it's a commercial door they can open for a company, or it's an introduction to a particular person who can join their leadership team or their board of advisors. A lot of our business, and really especially my role in our business, is making sense of this big network that we've developed and connecting dots within that network. And I really enjoy that. I guess where we're at now is we have 35 companies in our portfolio. Still looking for really exceptional founders, kind of at pre-seed or seed stage. So earlier stage generally than the 3 founders who have spoken before me. They're just getting started. They have a business plan, an idea, a vision, a dream. They want to make it a reality. Sadly, we have to say no to almost every venture, just the law of numbers, when we're getting that kind of quantity of inbound, but we try and be helpful to as many as we can. I think for me now, sitting here in Fairhope, thinking about, what I can do to connect our ecosystem in Europe into this, I think, there's a big opportunity there as well. And I mean that in all seriousness, that could be companies in our portfolio that are looking to expand into the US. Why do they need to go to New York or California to set up their first US office? Why don't they come to Mobile, where, the quality of life is exceptional, the cost of living is a fraction. There's plenty of opportunities to travel across the country. So that's something I'm really, and particularly now, quite a few of our European businesses are to the point now where they're starting to think about US expansion. There's potentially future opportunities to invest directly into US-based companies, although our current mandate doesn't allow us to do that. US investors investing back into Europe and then helping those companies grow back into the market here. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. I think, if I was to reflect on, lessons learned and things I wish I'd known back then, I think a lot of what the 3 founders before me said rang very true. I spoke to, there's this wonderful industry that I've come to learn about in the last 2 or 3 years of career counseling. I really didn't even know anything about it, but I knew about recruitment firms for most of my career, but I met 2 or 3 amazing firms in London who specialize in advising senior people on kind of career transitions, I guess their own pivots that they're going through from a career perspective. And one woman in particular, she always tells her clients about the 3 Ps of career success to her. And the 3 Ps to her are persistence, patience, and pleasant, being pleasant. I think the persistence and patience we often hear about, but the pleasant part, I think it's very easy to forget. And I think we have enough stresses in our lives generally with everything that's going on in our personal lives. If we can have our professional lives have lots of pleasure and pleasantness in them, I think that would be a good thing. So I try and remember those words every day. Most definitely learning from failure. That happens every day, as Walt said, and without a shadow of a doubt. It's been, a really important part of what we've learned over the last 6 years with Mustard Seed. And then definitely my whole career, for better or worse, has been guided by people. Organizations that I've chosen to join and not join have always been guided by, when it was big companies I was working for, do those organizations have people that I respect and admire, I can see myself working with? Now at Mustard Seed, obviously my decision to start the company with one of my closest friends. I was a bit nervous about that, but actually I think working with friends can be a really good thing because you know them really well. If it doesn't work out, it could be horrible, but actually like 90% of cases working with a friend can be great because you know their flaws and their strengths better than anyone else. And I'm glad that I have chosen to do that. Where we've got it wrong in terms of investments, it's where we've made the assessment of the people poorly. If I look at like 2 or 3 of our early investments, when we were getting started at Mustard Seed, we got overexcited about ideas, but we did not spend enough time getting to know the founders and the people and the teams around them. And I regret that, but it was all part of the learning process. And now, especially with people working virtually, making sure that we're often now investing in companies where we've never met the people in person, making sure that we're having plenty of interactions with them. We're doing reference checks, double reference checks, not just talking to the 2 or 3 people they tell us we should talk to, but doing kind of back channel references on people, and can't underestimate that. Similarly, it's both ends of the spectrum. I think if, we look at the companies that have done well and badly in our portfolio, and where we've made hiring mistakes, we've made 2 or 3 really bad hiring mistakes at Mustard Seed, which have set us back, who knows, 2 to 3 years in our evolution. We're in a very good place now with the people, but that was exactly the same thing. With the ventures, it was being overexcited by the business plan and not getting to know the founders well enough. And with the people, it was about the CV looking really glowing and lovely and shiny, but not getting to know them as human beings and individuals well enough. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with what the 3 founders before me spoke about that. I was talking to an American founder the other day who has this phrase of build a team, live the dream. I'm sure you've all heard that one before, but it was a new one to me, and it's a nice, simple one, but it made perfect sense when I heard it. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Alex. That was great. I think I'm doing pretty well on persistence, though I may be chasing some shiny objects, but I probably need help on the patience and pleasance part. So I'll be working on that. Well, I'd like to begin the Q&A by asking each one of you really the same question. And so I'll just kind of go in the order. So Daniel, what's the greatest single lesson that you've learned or greatest piece of advice that you were given that's made a difference to you? And we're asking Daniel Riggs, co-founder of BART.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, Michael, really, the book that really challenged me wasn't necessarily a person. A book that I read that really challenged me, most of you have probably heard of it, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. That was really influential on me in early on in my career. Like I said, finding out who you want to be, who you are, what your purpose is, basically finding out your why, I think is really important, especially at this stage that a lot of you are in right now in this group. So I would say really learning about yourself, spending time understanding what drives you, what your passion is, what your true passion is, would be something that's really impacted me personally and professionally.
Great, thank you. And our team from Ecuador is on the line now, and I'll apologize on all of our behalfs because the time is exactly the same as it was last week, but we changed to daylight savings time and forgot to tell you. So that problem is on us. So to the team, Paul, Gerard, Kaylee, we will have to put a big reminder to ourselves to make sure we let them know. So Daniel, would you mind repeating your welcome to the Ecuadorian team?
Absolutely. Bueno, gracias por participar. Una cosa que quería mencionar, el saber 2 idiomas, o sea, español e inglés, es una ventaja enorme, especialmente en los negocios. Aprovechalo. Gracias.
And Dr. Puto, I'll double back with you and make sure Daniel got all of that right, okay?
Igualmente.
Okay, well, I'd like to turn now to Adam Chronister, who's the founder and president and CEO of Pelident. Adam, what's the greatest single lesson you've learned or advice you've been given over the years that's made a difference?
So I've been given a lot of advice from a lot of people on this call, so I do need to be careful. But so I'm going to refer to my mother, and she told me, don't be scared, and don't be scared to start, and don't be scared to fail, but always move forward. So that's kind of how I live my life, and trying to keep it simple.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Adam. I'd like to turn to Walt Armentrout, co-founder, president, and CEO of HeartLegacy. Walt, what's the greatest single lesson you've learned or piece of advice you've been given?
As simple as it is, one of my mentors told me the best management style is MBWA, management by walking around. So as you start to grow a team, you want to keep them tight. It's easy to just walk around and have conversations with them. I know that seems so simple, but management by walking around, kind of an open door policy is what we have around here. I know it's COVID time, so things are a little different, but just stay accessible to your team, make fun happen with them and keep them as close as you can, especially the great ones.
Perfect. Thanks, Walt. Well, we'd like to turn now to Alex, co-founder of Mustard Seed Ventures, a venture capitalist firm. Tell us, what's the best advice you've been given, Alex, or the single best lesson you've learned that's made a difference in your life?
Yeah, having like an advisory board of people, of mentors, not a single mentor. Some companies will assign one person, but like a company will have an advisory board. I think someone going through their career should also have an advisory board. And each of those 4 or 5 individuals bring something different to the table.
Great. Good point. Great point. So let me open it up. Let me first ask the students. These speakers are here for you. So you can either send me the question in chat, or you can just shout out and we'll see how that works. So students in the class, the floor is to you.
Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, I do have a question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for talking to us. It was really nice to learn about your experience, and it's very good. My question was more about like jobs once you finish college. I've heard that some people have told me that working at a big corporation or a big company can be the right place to start, since you're gonna be learning how the whole process works. But on the other hand, some other people have told me that maybe working at a smaller company is gonna expose you to different tasks that you wouldn't perform at a bigger company. So if you were in college again, and if you had to pick whether you work for a bigger company or a smaller company, one right out of college, what do you think that would be the right choice for you?
Who would like to tackle that one? Adam, would you like to start?
I'll take it. So as an entrepreneur who started his entrepreneur career in his 40s, I have learned more now in the past 5 years of starting a business than I ever learned in the corporate side of it. If I had to do this over again, I would absolutely flip that. And while I'm young and I don't have kids and I don't have a house mortgage and I don't have a lot of those other expenses, I would absolutely go into an entrepreneurship and work for a small firm and learn as it grows. And that's just going to help you, whether you stay in small business or go to corporate. What you learn will, I mean, it's so much more, as far as I would be so much better of a manager if I had reversed it.
So Walt, I see you shaking your head yes. Anything you'd like to add?
I would just completely agree with that. Everybody here, we're a small enough team to where I call everybody like a utility man or a utility woman. Everybody wears every hat, Another great thing I would do if you do have the opportunity to start a company is that we have an employee stock option program. So I've got every one of my team members rowing in the same direction. They all have a little bit of equity into this thing. And for that reason, they're willing to do anything, to wear any hat. The customer service team might have to help marketing for something. But when you're in a small world like that, a small company, you have the opportunity to learn so much about every facet of the business. So I agree with Adam.
They perform like they own the company because they do, right?
That's right.
Daniel, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I took the reverse route, right? I went directly into a 70,000 employee global corporation. I would say that, well, from that, I've switched over to a 250 employee company after 8 years. I would say that in a smaller company, you are going to be exposed to a lot of different functions within the business. I do think it brings a ton of experience, a ton of opportunity for you. But it also depends on what you make of it, right? I was able to learn a lot. Really, if you do go into a large corporation, try to find people that will mentor you, or don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions. I would say one negative thing of a large corporation you're not going to have as much of an impact on the culture. And it's really hard. There are so many cultures within that large corporation, right? So it's really hard to judge what type of culture you're going to go into. But I would say it is what you make of it. But most likely in general, you're going to get more exposure within the small business.
Thank you, Daniel. So Alex, you've worked for some small groups like the Boston Consulting Group, which of course I'm kidding, it's a large outfit. One thing that strikes me as a good thing about going with a larger group is perhaps the training that could be provided. Any thoughts on kind of the push-pull here we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that was going to be the one thing I would say that kind of counters to that. I think if you're with a big established, long-standing organization, the kind of the depth of the professional training could be better. But to be honest, I think large versus small is much less important to me than good versus bad. Like I think you can find terrible small companies and great small companies and equally large companies. So I think it really doesn't make too much of a difference. I think the most important is, is this a company that shares my values, where I can see myself growing professionally over a period of time, and I'm going to learn from people, and whether that organization has 10 people or 10,000 people, I really think doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I've noticed in the last decade, at least, some very, very large companies forming very, very small groups, maybe 8 to 10 people that they will call an innovation team. And their whole mission is within the company, the larger company, to see how their business would be disrupted. In other words, who's going to come along and do something that will destroy their business plan, and try to preempt, know in advance, react, and make sure that doesn't happen. So one of our students from Spring Hill College, Timo, asked you, Alex, how do you make money? How does Mustard Seed generate revenue? We
make money from our investors paying fees. We don't charge entrepreneurs anything. We believe really strongly about that. So our investors pay us a management fee to manage their funds, which is typically 2% of the funds that we have invested with them. And then they also pay us a performance fee as and when there's a realization from that company. And we've held it for 5 years. The capital gain, 80% goes to the investor and 20% comes back to us. Those are the two main ways.
So I think, Alex, so from your point of view, and answer to Timo's question, you basically have clients that entrust their money as an investment to you in a pool to decide which companies should be invested in. So rather than them doing all the due diligence individually, they rely on you and your expertise to make that decision for them.
That's exactly right. Yeah, our team. Exactly right, Michael.
All right. So Denis, I see your hands up. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes. So first, I wanna say thanks to share all this information with us, and I wanted to know, like personally, well, how did you realize that you were meant to be an entrepreneur? Like as Mr. Rick said, how did you find your why, basically?
Well, let's see, Daniel. I think you've explained that. Walt, why don't you start with that one?
That's tough. I think every day for the first 4 years, I questioned as to whether or not I was doing the right thing. So I don't know if I ever knew until we became profitable that I felt we were on the right path. So you're gonna question yourself every day, especially in the beginning. And it's, that's when people quit. It's when things get really hard. When you go to bed at night and you don't know if you can make payroll the next day. Those are some scary times. But if you just fight through, I'm not going to say you will get there, but I don't know if you ever really know until you start paying some bills back. So I don't have a great answer for you.
So Alex, this is probably a good one for you as well, because you're an entrepreneur in the sense that you had these nice jobs, with Goldman Sachs, the Boston Consulting Group, and you just decided to go out on your own, take your own money, and then try to encourage other people to believe in you, to invest their money for them. So what was that leap of faith like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely scary, and I also questioned myself and still do, but actually, I think I was never really fundamentally being the best version of myself in larger organizations. And I don't think I was fundamentally that happy professionally in any of them either. I was learning, I was meeting people, I was developing probably And, going back to the previous question, I think, I would have had a hard time starting Must-See without having had at least 2 or 3 of those previous experiences. So everything, happens for a reason and at the right time. I think that's really important as well. Yeah, I think it was, having realized I was always having career itches in previous jobs every 2 or 3 years, and sort of wondering why I was having those career itches. And I think it's when you're with a bigger company and you're an employee, there's not always, sometimes there is, but in my experience, too often there wasn't a correlation between what you put in and what you see coming out, because there's bureaucracy, politics, you're an employee, you're not an owner of a business, whereas as an entrepreneur, there's just a much more linear relationship between input and output, and all the joys of being flexible with your schedule and independent as well.
Good points. Let's see, any other questions? Any from the teaching team or the students? We'll be shutting this part down in just a few minutes. So Denis, your hand's still up. Did you have another question or are you okay? No, you're okay. All right. Well, let me just kind of make a few comments at the end and then we'll close out this part. And this is really a little bit of an effort to pull things together of what you've said and what I pulled from what you said to make sure the class in particular hears what you said. So one of the things that I thought was interesting from Daniel, he mentioned very briefly something called the Enneagram, and he professed to be an 8, which is not the warmest and fuzziest number on the Enneagram, right, Daniel? But if it's a system that is a couple centuries old, created, I think, by the Sufi monks in North Africa. And Daniel, you probably know more about this than I do, but it was their way of evaluating different people that they, like their parishioners, we would say, or their followers. They would classify them by personality types to be able to better tend to their needs, knowing kind of what they were like. And I bring this up because Daniel's point, we made available, Daniel, you may not know this, something called a DISC profile to all of our students so they could take the test and get a feel for what their strengths were and kind of how they fit in on those, that spectrum. So your point about knowing yourself is dead on target. And the other thing that I think that everyone has talked about is the importance of failing. When you just succeed glamorously, you don't know whether you were good or lucky. When you fail, you know you learn something. You always learn something from failing. And so I think failure is too pejorative a word. It's too negative a word. It's really just learning. And it's something that we all should take for granted because you just don't hit it the first time all the time. The other thing that I thought was very interesting in listening to all of you were the pivots. You know, all the students on this call started with an idea. We told you that 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to change your idea or the customer. And if you listen to these 4 individuals, every single one of them did something different. Nobody ended up with what they started with. And that is pretty much true in almost every business person that you interview. It always changes. It certainly changes from the beginning. And if you not only thrive, but survive, you will wind up changing as well. The other thing that I thought was a great learning point is listen to their stories, because as you evaluate your own technology and your own concept, people have identified on this call other people that could help them sell their product. So in the case of Adam, he was selling direct, and then he realized that, geez, there are tens of thousands of CPAs out there that can sell my product for me as part of their service. So he pivoted. In terms of Walt, realizing that there was a whole senior living community, someone out there that could literally help sell that product. And the other thing that also came out, which I found very interesting, is the focus on who will pay. So if you look as students on the call at your concept, your technology, you have great ideas, but who's going to pay for it? So if you look at, say, Walt's story, when he realized that the money going for the activities budget was far less than the money that they were willing to put into the marketing budget. that made a fundamental difference in how he sold his product and what he focused on. Really a great point, listening to what the customer's needs are. All right. The other point I think Daniel mentioned at the end, which we have in the materials, are the 5 whys. You know, why? Asking customers, you know, why? Or in Alex's point, which, you know, the 5 whys, it's all about due diligence, digging deeper to find what the real answer is. But that also applies to the people you surround yourself with. And his point about hiring. Hiring is critical, and you always want to make sure that when you expand the business, you do it the right way. So I think you guys did a fabulous job. We really appreciate it. Any closing comments from the teaching team before we let these gentlemen go and move into the next part of the class?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for your time.
Well,
Very impressive all the way around.
I'll just tell you, Walt, Ty Greer sent me a message when you were talking about the MBA from South. He asked me if that was a paid placement, and so it was not.
How much did he feed you on that one, Walt?
I was not, there was no referral fee for that, but I will say I was, you know, back to the question about larger company or smaller company. I was fortunate when I graduated, I worked for a larger company and they helped offset the cost of that MBA program at night. So there's another positive for the larger company column.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all so much for being with us. And if you're on the teaching team, the students, please don't leave the call. We'll still continue on. And I will follow up with all of our speakers with a note of thanks. Thank you so much for being